right here, setthepacetriathlon.com, and I'm going to hit you with my personal race experience at Ironman Tulsa 2021. First Ironman in Tulsa, first Ironman of 2021, second in a pandemic world for full Ironman. And I'm going to go in a little bit more in depth about my personal experience and how my training and how I got to start line and the finish line. Did get to the finish line, got my medal to prove it, and kind of what I had to do in order to make ends meet to be able to get this race done in the book.
Hey everyone, what's going on? If you're in this group, you're probably here either doing the race or watching someone do it. Wanted to thank everybody that said something on the course that said hi to me. I didn't know that many people watched the videos and recognized me. But anyway, congratulations to everybody that finished. That was a interesting day. Pothole dodging, mud dodging on rough roads. If I don't see another rough road sign, it'll be too soon. I am sick of rough roads. That last 12-mile little loop with rough roads and some monster hills, no thanks. That kind of sucked. So I'll probably redo the bike video a little bit. Definitely save it for the end because that sucked. And the run course, I wish it would have rained more than once on the run course instead of the entire bike course, basically. Just saved a little bit for the run course. But we did get a little shower out there, and actually for Tulsa, this was pretty good. Usually it's pretty windy, and we ended up not really having to suffer out there with the wind, just the rain. So, again, thanks to everybody that said something, said hi to me. Hopefully you found all of this information helpful. I'll probably be changing a few things and revamping a few things here and there. So I want to check out the last few of my athletes finishing. So hopefully everybody had a great race and got everything they expected out of it. If you didn't, let me know, and we will help you get there. Talk to you later.
So we're going to basically, as we go through each individual leg, I kind of explain a little bit more of my background and my training in each one of these. But so we'll just start off, and I'm going through my Garmin Connect information because I think this kind of has a nice telltale sign of what the race is like and what you experience, because it's got all kinds of information on here. So we'll start off with just kind of race morning, and if you want more in-depth information about the race in general, and check in and logistics and all that, I did do a blog post on the site at thepacetriathlon.com. Go hit the blog, it's on there. I put that on different channels, and if you're watching this through the course, it's in there as well. So you can find out more information about logistics, nuts and bolts, and all that kind of stuff. But I'm just going to go kind of race day experience and how my training helped me get through the day. So basically, when you get there in the morning, you have to come into and the transition and finish line area was by the gathering place. And then, well, actually, no, I take that back. Gathering place is on the run course. But so there's Guthrie on the Green, I believe it is called. And you'll have to forgive me. I've been to Tulsa and been to the race, but I'm not a Tulsa native. But as you can see, as the window zooms in, so downtown is where transition is. So you got One Oak Field, and you've got Guthrie Green is where the finish line is. Now, what's interesting is transition 2 is over here by Oklahoma State University, which is about 0.75 miles away from the finish line area, so it's not a big deal. But when I came in, you had the option. They had different for the hotels downtown. You could get a shuttle to the T2 area, so it's short. And if you walk, but I opted to go ahead and get a parking pass and park at Oklahoma State University in the parking lot because I didn't want to have to grab all my gear. Because after the race, they still had the shuttles to get you back to One Oak, but unfortunately, you would not be able to take your bike and your gear on there. So I didn't want to lug my bike and my gear all the way across downtown. It's a little under a 2-mile walk with all the crud. So when you have 3 heavy gear bags, and it rains, so it's all wet and heavy, and your bike, and you've done a full Ironman, the last thing I want to do is trek up and down hills downtown and try to get all my stuff in one hotel. So I drove and parked at the University of Oklahoma, the Tulsa University campus, and I left my hotel about 3:50, and at that point in time, the parking was getting the line was getting a little bit longer. So definitely one of those things where you don't want to wait until the last minute. You want to get there as early as possible. Got a decent parking spot. There's places left, but the lines were just getting pretty long pretty quick. But as soon as you get there, you get done, you go drop off your morning gear bag, and then you hit the bus. And we had to wear masks on the bus, which isn't a big deal. I'm used to it. So from there, they transported us to the swim start over at Keystone Lake. So it's probably a 25-minute-ish drive. And once we got there, traffic was, on the exit, getting a little bit dicey because volunteers are coming in, race people are coming in. There was not athlete drop off, but I think spectators were coming in and finding different places to park to be able to walk over. So it was getting a little full. And just reading some of the information from some of the Facebook groups, people kind of waited for the last minute and kept the last buses, made it very interesting because when they bring you in, they drop you off right at T2. So it was kind of nice because this little loop here was where all the transition stuff was. So they come in, drop you off, and you come in, you check your bags, do everything, and then they called us up in groups of pace swim times. So, if you're under an hour, if you're an hour 10, an hour 10, an hour 20, then you walked all the way over here to the swim start. So I want to say a mile, mile and a half or something like that. So I brought swim socks or shoes, whatever you call it. They had a sole on them because I didn't want to walk on this pavement personally and hurt my feet and all that kind of good stuff. So I wore that, and I had, as you can see, the temperature is 66 degrees. So it was a little chilly, and it was kind of raining a little bit. So I had on a t-shirt, a jacket, and some old warm-up pants, some flannel pants to keep me warm. So I got there in ample time, and there's plenty of bathrooms and porta potties over here. There's porta potties over to swim start. So go over there when they called out the times. There's plenty of time to stand around the swim start area and put your wetsuit on. And then they put us in corrals, which is a little different than your normal self-seated pace time to kind of spread everybody out, but it didn't really work all the way well, per se. They needed signage to tell you, this is the hour and under an hour people, this is the hour and 20 minutes, this is the 2 hour people. A lot of people have questions, and they're kind of shuffling back and forth between the corrals, and the corrals didn't really, they helped space out the lines in a small little area, but overall it could have been maybe managed a little bit better. But anyway, so for me personally, I just kind of sat in my corral. I shot for the hour and 10, hour 20 minute, and as you can see, my swim time is hour 13, so I spaced myself pretty good. So basically, it was a rolling start. So when you got in there, you lined up in a line of 4 people, and then they kind of cycled us through, and every 5 seconds there was a beep, and you got in the water and started swimming. So I was a little concerned because, as you can see, the course is a little bit different. You swim out here, swim all the way back, and there's a couple turns in here. Actually, I was pleasantly surprised. I learned from Ironman Chattanooga in 2019 because there is a strong river current that I can't just put my head down and keep swimming because I'll get way off course, and I'm tired of wasting time swimming back and forth. So I sided early and often. Hit the buoys. They had just the right amount of buoys. There was no real waves to speak of except from the boats and the kayakers, which wasn't much. There's no current. Really, you weren't fighting. There's no wind. I think we got lucky in race day. It did rain, but there's no wind. So I think we got a little bit lucky with that. So there's really nothing to push you off current. It was wetsuit legal. It was actually, the water temperature was pretty cold. I think it was around 68 degrees. So I had a neoprene swim cap underneath my swim cap. And because I just get cold in the water. So I had my full exterior wetsuit. I had neoprene swim cap and my swim cap on, goggles, earplugs, all that good stuff. And unfortunately, the wristband for Ironman got caught and chafed me up there pretty good on the swim. So that was kind of fun later on when I get sweat and all kinds of other stuff in there. But so here's a little bit deep dive into my training. So for when this was going to happen in 2020, I was swimming about 3 to 4 times per week, getting in about 10,000, 12,000 yards a week, which was aggressive for me, and I wanted to do much better at the swim, so I was spending more time in the pool. When we got word in March of 2020 that the race was going to be indefinitely postponed or canceled or whatever, our pool shut down, so I didn't need to swim for a while. Then did my little mock-up race in around May 20-something, when the original race was supposed to happen in 2020. So didn't do too bad. Did a lot of indoor dry land strength work and that type of thing, and actually didn't do too bad. So ever since then, I don't think I ever went over 3 times a week, or went over 2 times a week. Maybe I got 3 times in 1 week here and there, but not very often. So mostly it was 2 times a week, 3,000, 3,500 yards a pop. I kept them pretty. It was either longer sets or it was kind of medium sets with speed and tempo mixed in. So I wasn't really doing speed specific workouts. I wasn't just doing distance, and just keeping a good variety in there to keep my speed up, keep my endurance up. I did paddles, did buoys, pull sets, trying to keep the strength work up in the pool, and really with what was going on in personal lives and family and everything else, that's all I had time for, really, to get out and get in the pool and get that work done. So that swim I'm pretty happy with. That kind of matches my previous best time in open water with a wetsuit that's not downriver aided. So hour 13, I was pretty happy with. I had a big question mark how that swim was going to go, but I came out feeling pretty good. I've been working on my technique and my stroke in the pool, and I think it really paid off to have good technique for 2.4 miles and not be extremely worn out. And put a wetsuit on, it fit just perfect. Really wasn't sore in the shoulders. I did use Amp Human. Now, if you've seen that, that's kind of a lotion that goes on that's supposed to kind of help you stave off fatigue a little bit longer. I don't know if it really helped or not, but it does have like a nice little warming effect. So when you got in the water, it at least kept me nice and toasty in my wetsuit. So it was just perfect. So I can't really say yes or no if it helped or not because I didn't do the swim without it. But coming out, I was pretty happy with that swim time, especially off of 2 swims per week, around 3,000, 3,500 yards per swim. I was really pleased with that. I was kind of surprised. But coming out, it was raining. So, I've done posts about going out and cycling in the rain and doing races in the rain. I really wasn't looking forward to it, but there's nothing we can do. Luckily, it was not windy. I think we got really, really lucky. So if you look at the bike course, Tulsa and the Midwest in general is windy. And in May, you're kind of in the hot spot of severe weather season. So there's no lightning, there's no thunder, and there's no wind. It was just rain. There's a few gusty moments, but 70 degrees and rain and cloudy. I think that actually kind of really worked, at least to my advantage, and probably a lot of other people. It made it a little treacherous because the roads, you'll hear everybody talking about, the roads were not, I'd say over 50% was rough roads, potholes, and kind of problematic. They did try to repave some major sections, but especially in the first 20 miles, you're going to pass a landfill, and just the trucks going in and out, just taking mud everywhere. And they did the best, Ironman did the best they could to get that road cleaned off, but it was still muddy. And going through, just covered in mud and grit. So for the rest of the ride, at least it rained enough to kind of wash it off. But so it was on my bottles. It kind of ruined my water bottles, but hey, whatever. That's first world problems. But it scratched them all up. So the main thing here is make sure that your stuff is bolted to your bike. I've never seen so many water bottles, bottle cages, bike boxes, and stuff littering the road everywhere. And it didn't even matter whether there's potholes or rough road, there's stuff everywhere. So word to the wise for this race, make sure your stuff is bolted to your bike well and that your bottles fit in your bottle cages snugly, because if they don't, they're going to pop out and they're going to be on the road. So just be aware of that. So a little bit more background about my training. As you can see, didn't mean to zoom out on that. So that's the course. And it was one loop, so that was kind of nice. I'll kind of go over that a little bit more, but as you can see, there's significant climbing sections to it. I mean, it was truly, and then the last 12 miles was not exactly a pleasure cruise. So it's going to keep you honest. And it's really going to test your bike training that you've been able to do over the winter, because this is a May race, and in Midwest, Kansas City, where I live, you're not getting outside much unless you're hardcore. I am not. I don't ride under the 50 degrees. I don't like to ride in the dark. I don't like riding around cars. It's just, I'd rather come home at the end of the day and not have an injury or whatever. So I spent the majority of my training indoors, probably like 98%. I think I made it outside 3 times for less than 90 minutes each time since October of 2020, leading up to this race. So I had a big question mark. I think I knew strength-wise my legs could get the job done. The problem was my lower back, and I've done fits on my bike. I've done all kinds of things, strengthening, physical therapy, all kinds of things. My lower back just does not, unless I get the time outdoors on the bike where you're on the pavement, you're feeling pounding on your back. There's just no way to get around it for me. So pretty much every aid station, I kind of had to stop and stretch. So that just kind of kills. And this right here, unfortunately, rookie mistake. I had auto pause on my watch going during the race, so whenever I stopped, it took it out. So this average speed, it took me a little bit more time than this to do this part of the race, the bike course. But I mean, as you can see, I got all the information from Garmin and my power pedals and everything. So average power is 162 watts, and then let's see, normalized power is 191 watts. So that's actually pretty close to my target of 200 watts average normalized power for the bike. So I was actually pretty happy with that. But I think the key factor is I had to stop a lot at the aid stations. So luckily I got at the aid station. I stopped the special needs, stretch out the back, make sure I was really comfortable, and really focused on nutrition and hydration. Get it in to get enough energy because I knew on the run I wouldn't be able to do many solids and probably very little liquids. That's just the way my body is. Once I get going that far into a race, I add too much in there, and it's going to result in some stops in the porta potties, and that'd be pleasant. But we'll talk more about that on the run. But so everybody asks all the time, "What was your goal? What's your time goal? Did you set a PR?" No, this was not a PR for me for the race. I think total time says 12:52. It was actually 13:05 because of the auto pauses. I think the bike was the big limiter, if you will, but gotta take it with a grain of salt. Like I said, training over the winter and obligations that I had for work and for other things. I do coach, but I also had to do some other things. The pandemic's been hurting us all. And to make ends meet, this took more time out of training that I wasn't able to dedicate. I couldn't get outside, the activities for the family on the weekends, and I wasn't prepared to cut out time away from the family to do my training. So I did the training where I could. Mostly it was indoors. And hey, I think for doing most of my training indoors on the treadmill and on the trainer, and I haven't been outside to do open water swimming since May of 2020, I don't think. So I think this is pretty good. This demonstrates the effectiveness of doing indoor training. It got the job done. It wasn't the prettiest of bike rides, but this is not my worst Ironman time. Um, but I think the bike ride, in retrospect, if I could find some more time to ride outdoors, I think this would have gone a long ways to help me out on that. But just in retrospect, this is a tough course. There's no way around it. That's maybe it looks like, oh, it's just some climbing here and there, but it's tough. And the rough roads, you got to be on the swivel. You got to be avoiding potholes and watching out for the riders. And you can't just go balls out when it's raining. Going down hills, you got to ride the brakes. Unless you just got no fear and you don't really care if you fall off, fly off the road or something like that. But I would say this. Usually, I'm not timid on the bike, but in the rain, and my bike, my QRPR6, man, is the bomb. It handled everything, did everything I asked, and covered it in mud, grit, and grime, and it made it to the finish line and without a problem. So that's always the other big question mark. Will you get through a bike ride without a problem with your bike? Mechanical or flat? I had no flat tires, no mechanicals, no nothing. I attribute that to that I was timid on the bike, took my time, avoided the potholes, didn't fly over stuff to create a situation where I might pop a tire, and just kept my wits about me. Didn't get caught up in people passing me if they did. Didn't get caught up in trying to catch people. Race my own race, and if you do that, you can get through one of these races and do just fine. But I will point out this last little loop. You get to mile 100 about here, and then you do this little loop. You see these little spikes in here? This was the most wretched part of the bike course, and you put it after mile 100. If I had any requests, please take this out and do something else. This sucked. That's, when I started seeing rough road signs again, I cursed, and when we got to this last little monster climb, people were laughing at me because I was spouting profanities as we rode up the hills. So this right here, if you do this race in the future, and if they keep this course anywhere near the same, man, you got to manage this stuff and don't blow your wad in this little section here where it's kind of flattish, because the last 12 miles will really put you to the test. That was not fun for me at all. That pretty much took anything I had left. But luckily, like I said, I stopped, stretched my back out at every aid station, skipped the last aid station coming into this, and then at that point, I was just ready to be done. So, I'd call the bike course, I survived it. I didn't really attack it, and that was my plan all along, because I wanted to get to the run. And make sure we pull up the run here. That's a swim. That's the bike. Let's do the run. So, pretty much flat as a pancake. I mean, there's a few little hills here and there, but you can't get flatter than this. And as you can see, I was able to manage. I did, and running, really with run training, I handle that pretty good. I did treadmill. I did outside once in a while when I could. So I was averaging 40 to 50 miles per week in peak phase. And usually throughout the year, I'm about at 40 miles a week anyway. So really getting up the distance for running wasn't the problem. It was more the bike was, I think, the key factor in this race for me. It made me a little, like I said, a little bit of a limiter. But if you look at the run, so I was able to get through until probably mile 17, looks like. And then kind of had to do a little bit of walk run. And then, let's see, what mile is this? This is, yeah, I don't want to bore you a bit. But anyway, towards the end, here's where I kind of had to do a run walk and ended up the last little part kind of running through. But I think this is where it really shines through, the race. The river trail system, going through and doing this run. You come through downtown and you do the trail, come back and hit another loop and go through. It's awesome. Spectators everywhere, great course. The trails were in great conditions. There's porta potties everywhere. There's plenty of aid stations. It broke it up because the aid stations were a mile and a half apart. So you had good targets in there. There was good energy. Really, I think this is where this race really stands out, because this run, especially after that tough bike course, coming through and be able to do kind of a more flat run, I think is going to be the key. Oh, and I also wanted to say I have some Asics Meta Racers. So I had broken them into this point, and this is the first time I've used them in a race. And I will say, I think they don't necessarily make you faster, but they make you more economical, and it's less impact to your joints. I will say that my body was not the limiter in the run. I would say my limiter would be the ability to get my GI system to get on board. Towards the last end bit, I took on a little bit more water than probably my stomach wanted to. And by little, I mean sips. I was sipping at aid stations, I was chewing on ice and spitting out the extra, and I was swishing Red Bull and swishing water to keep as much hydration I could as possible without putting anything in my stomach. And I made the mistake around mile 21, 22 of sipping a little bit more water, thinking I'd be okay. And my stomach really didn't like it, starting to burp up some air and stuff, and really didn't feel like running myself into a situation where I needed to go alongside the road and upchuck or something. So that was, I'd say, my biggest limiter. I did, in the past, I kind of fallen apart around mile 8 or 9 just because I wasn't listening to my body. This time, I was probably to mile 19 before it really set in that I had to kind of slow it down and let my system recover. I was going to drive myself into a situation where I was going to be uncomfortable. And as you can see here, there's a little section where I kind of walked a little bit because I ended up cramping. So I have an issue with my inner thighs will cramp up after extended periods of time, especially in Ironman races. So you just got to listen to your body. Here, I just walked it off, put ice down in front of my pants, froze it up a little bit, and I was able to continue on. I had a good stretch before I had to get to a point where my stomach said, no, I'm done. If you want to make this race in any kind of fashionable time, you need to kind of slow it down and take it easy. So that's kind of, run training, I think, was on point for this. Did my long runs. I did broken long runs. So in the morning I do 2 hours, and then throughout the day I either try to do 45 minutes or another hour. So usually I get to like 20, 21 miles for the day on Fridays. And then I picked up my other distance during the week. I did a speed run. I did a hill run on the treadmill, and then just other supporting brick runs or just easy runs or something like that. So I think my run training body wise was on point. Really didn't have an issue with that. And I'm just kind of curious looking at the average heart rate. So average 124. So, really not out there killing myself per se. Sorry, zooming in on that. So overall, everybody asks, so you're happy with the results? How do you feel about it? And um, looking at all the information, the swim, I was pretty happy with, especially the amount of training I was able to get in, and the complexity of the swim course. I was pretty happy with that. For the bike ride, like I said, I knew that was going to be a limiter. I knew my back was going to be a problem, but hey, it's race day. You suck it up, and you can do what you got to get from aid station to aid station. So that was my plan. Aid stations, I stopped. I stretched. I drank water. I ate my nutrition. I didn't want to mess with nutrition on the bike in the rain on slick surfaces with potholes and rough roads. So that was a good stopping point, just to shove food in my face, chew it up while I'm down there stretching my back. So that was my plan, and I executed that plan to the best of my ability. And this is kind of you kind of go back to your best training that you had, and I was indoors averaging maybe 200 miles a week. But like I said, that's not really a substitute for being on the road and what your body will have to endure, especially in rough road conditions. So I knew that was going to be an issue, and so I didn't know how much of an impact it was going to be. I didn't know if it would impact my run as much, but I was pretty happy getting to mile 19 and pretty much avoiding any kind of stomach issues. Like I said, I think the stomach more brought on by just saying, oh, well, maybe we can try a little bit more water, a little bit more fluids, and just didn't want to cooperate. But hey, sometimes you figure out what does and doesn't work after 8 Ironman. I'm still trying to kind of put that puzzle together. This is by far not like my best time, but I think, like I said, this Ironman Tulsa is I think it's a tough course. That bike course is tough and it's real. But the area was great. The scenery was awesome. I just wish they'd fix more of the roads, to be honest. There is a lot that can be done for some of these little country roads to get them kind of up to speed. Now, they did try to go through and pave as much as possible. There's some sections that were just beautiful, like glass. And, living in the Midwest, I understand, you're going to have times where it's negative 10 degrees and you're going to have times where it's 110 degrees. And pavement, freeze, thaw, and pops. And it's just hard to keep up with it. And I understand that. But if you're going to have this race, continue having this race, and you want people to come and do this race, I think that needs to be addressed. And I just hope they do something with this little last 12-mile section, because that was just rancid and just repulsive. Still kind of cringe thinking about it. But so that's just kind of my synopsis. Everybody's doing their post-race reports, and just me reflecting back on the race and the day. I knew it was going to be a long day. I knew my training wasn't where I wanted it to be, but I knew it was good enough to get the job done. And I think that's what the day was more about for me. It wasn't out there chasing the PR or chasing some imaginary goal that I made up. It was getting through the swim and just seeing that was a big question mark, seeing where I was at, surviving the bike, and then trying to manage the run and find that solution to the Rubik's Cube of energy and GI problems. And I think I did a pretty good job getting to mile 19. So I think with more outside bike training time, I think that would have been improved as well. Having the body in a better shape when I started the run. But other than that, I'm pretty satisfied with this race. Getting it done, getting a nice little finisher's medal. It's better than a DNF, because I've done that in Ironman Texas in 2014, and that's no fun to walk away without a medal and to still suffer through the bike ride and then through 14 miles of run. But so that's my little take on it, and hopefully that helps you out if you're thinking about doing a race, or if you did the race, or if you have problems with the race, or where you can fix it, or Hopefully this helped you out. Nutrition wise, I did fig bars on the bike. I did the quantum energy squares they had on the course. Those were pretty good. I have a mixture of Gatorade Endurance that I did for my drink. I throw a little Red Bull in there because I like it. A little bit of 5 hour energy just to kind of keep the caffeine going. Water during the swim. Before the swim, I think I did Pop Tart Bites in T2 or T1. I did Pop Tart Bites. And I had some of those that I did the H stations throughout as well. And my special needs was Pop Tart Bites and Mountain Dew. I drank a little bit. On the run, I had 2 little bitty Pop Tart Bites because I knew I just could not have that much food. And then special needs, I went through and tried a little bit of Pop Tart Bite, and that wasn't going to work, so I knew I just didn't take anymore. But overall, I mean, nutrition wise, I don't think I really needed that much more nutrition. I think that was on point. I was aiming for about 200 to 300 calories an hour, and with the 8 stations about every 15 miles, I was definitely getting that. So, no special, I didn't use UCAN this time. I didn't use any other specialized formulas or anything, so nothing crazy. The morning breakfast was my typical overnight oats. I posted that everywhere, what goes into that. So there's really nothing that drastically different. I think I had a banana too for breakfast. And I cut everything, I made sure I had breakfast 2 hours before the race start. And then I cut off my last snack about 30 minutes before. I did do hot shot to help with my cramps because usually after a swim I come out and my hamstrings cramp up immediately. So I had a hot shot before I started to swim, and then when I started the bike and special needs, I had one. And that I think really helps me get past my cramping situations I'd have typically in a race and a run, even though I was hydrated well enough. And on the hydration front, glad it was raining on the bike, so people didn't notice how many times I peed myself on the bike. I'll be honest with you, I peed on the bike a lot. You're in the rain, it's going to wash off, so it's not that big of a deal. But key indicator if you're being hydrated, if you have to pee. Stop any stations or whatever to pee. If you're not peeing on the bike, you're not hydrated, you're going to run into problems on the run. Even on the run, I stopped at porta potties and peed. So that's always a good indicator. If you're not peeing, especially if you're spending 3, 4, 5 hours on the run, if you're not peeing at all, you're going to have a problem. And not going into even the depths of what color and consistency and all that. The darker it is, the more dehydrated you are. But I think I did that properly as well. Kept hydrated. It also helped. It was cloudy, like I said. It was overcast. It was raining. It was cool, 70 degrees. It warmed up just a smidge on the run. But being here in Kansas City, we've gotten a week and a half before we start getting a little bit warmer and humid. And to me, it really didn't feel any different than any other day around here. It's humid in the Midwest usually all the time in Kansas City. So really didn't affect me all that much. I was very much appreciative. Kind of compare it a little bit to Chattanooga, and the bike is a little bit similar. And the run for Chattanooga is more drastic and more hills. But weather-wise, I think this worked out perfect because it was, like I said, 70s, overcast, rained off and on, kept it cool, and really the heat was not going to end up being a factor. Humidity maybe a little bit. So that would be my key takeaways. But you never know what you're going to get in May for weather-wise. So, but I kind of rambled on for a little bit. If you got any other specific questions that I didn't answer in my little race report here, please put them in the comments. I'm always happy to add stuff later and go back and answer any questions you might have. Scour the website. I got tons of information on IRONMAN Tulsa since I did it personally. Had athletes that do it. Everybody finished. Did great. It was a tough course, but well worth it, well earned, and I think the community in Tulsa was great. The atmosphere was great. If you go, I would recommend staying closer to kind of the downtown where the transition finish line area is. That's like the most vibrant of the area and the most excitement that you'll see. So with that, thanks for watching. Hopefully you found this entertaining and useful. And if you got any questions, put them in the comments, and happy training. We'll talk to you later.